Hello there, Mandy here. Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart is not just a podcast. It's also a book, a free online grief group, and a one-on-one private coaching practice. If you are interested in learning more, visit mandykapehart.com to find out how restorative grief can help you heal heart, mind, body, and spirit. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 209, titled Making Aligned Choices with Amy Murtola. If you had the choice to start over completely, how would you know it was the right choice for you? My guest today is a good friend of mine. Her name is Amy Murtola. She's the founder of AlignedSoulCo and an enneagram coach whose work is as bold as it is healing. A few years ago, Amy made a radical leap, leaving behind her home state, her previous life, and choosing to go forward completely on her own. Through the powerful lens of the enneagram, she turned what felt like vulnerability into raw, transformative strength. Now she's launched Unfuck Your Type, an immersive shadow work course online designed to help move beyond knowing your type into actively working through defense mechanisms, blind spots, and toward your virtue. I can't wait for you to dive into her story of reinvention, the power of hard choices, and how Enneagram work literally held her up through it all. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I'm your host, Mandy. Today, I am super thrilled to bring my friend Amy Murtola on the show. She is the owner and founder of the AlignedSoulCo, which is this beautiful Enneagram coaching and education organization that she has put together and as a labor of love, sending so much beauty into the world for us to learn from. She's an Enneagram coach and also a recent creator of this wonderful online course called Unfuck Your Type, for learning about shadow work and getting into your own personal development. So without further ado, hello, Amy. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while. I should have looked. It's been a while since we've done a podcast. You came onto my podcast
Yep.
a couple of years. I wasn't even in Colorado, so a couple years ago. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to be in this space with you
I
again.
know, me too. I was just thinking about how when you lived in Oklahoma, it was so much easier, all the things we were talking about. So first, let's start with this. How did you decide, oh, the Enneagram's really interesting. I think I'll dedicate my professional life to that field and that study.
You're gonna love this. So about 5, 6 years ago, a friend of mine came to me and she said, I'm a type 8. Take this quiz. I want to know what you are. Just like that.
Eights would never do that. How dare you?
Never, never, especially not a sexual 8-wing 7. Never. And so I took the quiz and I had been looking for something. I had just been looking into human design, which ironically I thought was too big of a subject for my brain to retain. Then I got to the Enneagram and was like, psych, even more. I had been looking for something. So when my friend came to me and gave me this little quiz to take, I did type correctly the first time, which is not always the case, but I did as a 2. I was so offended. I was so upset when I read about my type because, like most people, I'm not reading about the gifts or the strengths. I'm reading about the challenges and the struggles. And it was talking about manipulation and giving to get and people pleasing. And I thought, these are supposed to be secrets. No one is supposed to know these things about me. And I just felt so called out. I was offended. I slammed my laptop shut, like, hello, pride. I was so offended. And I came back to it the next day and I thought, okay, if something can give me a visceral reaction like that, there's something in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something really in there. And I just became obsessed with it. I started learning about my type, and then I expanded into learning about my friend's type is an 8, which I loved. And yeah, that was, I think, 2019, maybe 2020. And I've been obsessed with it ever since. I've been certified in it 3 times. I'm not I don't enjoy learning things. I'm not a natural learner. I'm severely ADHD, very neurodivergent. It can be very hard for me to, once I know something, I know it.
Mm.
But to get from point A of not knowing to point B of knowing is very hard for me, can be hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get enough of it. I just couldn't get it. Like if you came out with a certification today, I'd probably take it. Why not? I love it so much. It's changed my life.
Yeah. You have gone through such a transformation since we first met as well. And when you say it's changed my life, I know that is not something you're saying lightly. So,
Yeah.
speaking of which, you got to Colorado because of something that awoke in you through all of your studies with enneagram work. And that's
Yeah.
typically what we see, right? We see people have an awareness of themselves with a new lens, with this new hopefully level of compassion where they can recognize where they've sacrificed themselves or sacrificed part of their innate gifting, that true self within them, and have the courage, find the courage to move toward a more truer expression, a more true expression, or a truer expression, whatever, of themselves and who they are becoming. So tell me how that awareness of, okay, these secrets are now more exposed than I thought, but there's something magical that can still come from that.
Yeah. So I had just right around that time, I typed as a two. I had just gotten sober. I had, been an alcoholic for 5 years. I had been addicted to prescription pills for 5 years, was heavily abusing all of the above, all at the same time, very dangerous. I had started a path of losing 100 pounds, and which I had gained during, alcoholism and addiction. And it was just this very slow unraveling and deconstruction of everything. I got sober, and then I realized I was in a situation where no one in my life was sober.
Mm.
And then I realized no one in my life was doing work like the Enneagram or inner work. And to your point, like you can't once you're aware, it's too late.
Yeah.
You can't take it, you can't unsee it, you can't take it back. And so I just continued the path of looking at the hardest parts of my life. And I did see the giving to get, the manipulation, the self-sacrificing in a way that's not positive, right? I think people can hear self-sacrifice and think, oh, isn't that what Jesus
So
does?
generous.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. If you believe in Jesus, that's probably the only person who should be self-sacrificing. No one else, no one else, not in a positive or healthy way, in a very manipulative, indirect, how do I get my needs met way. But I was also realizing that I couldn't get my needs met in any way because I was surrounded by the wrong environment
Mm.
and the wrong people, and nothing against those people. There was just a misalignment,
Yep.
which is probably why I needed to be drunk and high and stoned in order to fit somewhere I didn't fit. And so life became about, okay, I've got to undo all of these things in order to fit where I fit. And it was such a painful process, ending relationships with people. I walked away from a marriage of 15 years. I left my home state of 40 years. I'd only ever lived in good old Oklahoma. But the Enneagram and being within that world started to bring people in my life who were doing things like that. They were interested in waking up and becoming aware of their patterns. And that encouraged me to keep going. And then I had this tool and resource that showed me, okay, this is what I look like when I'm not healthy. Or not, I don't like the healthy versus unhealthy language. This is what I'd look like when I'm not aware. This is what I look like when I'm more aware. This is what I look like when I'm secure and insecure and stressed. And it was just such a duality of incredibly hard and beautiful way of going about it. And it took years. It probably took, even though I found the Enneagram in 2019, 2020, I didn't really start deconstructing all of that in a really big way until maybe 2022, 2023, probably 2022. In all honesty, I was suicidal. I was having a ton of suicidal ideations. I didn't want to be alive. And I had to live differently. I just had to live differently. It was the only way. And I'm so grateful I did it that way.
Yeah. You said something, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think that's where people really hesitate. We've talked many times about how this is such an expansive framework, and you even named it, which can be really threatening, especially when you've created a life where, okay, this isn't the best, this isn't my dream, this isn't exactly what I thought it would be, but it's stable enough, but it's safe enough, but it's secure enough. I belong enough slash I fit in enough. Right. And so there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and anxiety and loneliness that can come around when you are faced with something that holds up a mirror that says this is not a box that you need to live within, but this is the box where you reside when your energy is low, when you are unaware, when you are disconnected from what really brings you joy and brings you to life. So how did you recognize after you got sober, especially all of those big emotions that we would classify as negative or uncomfortable, fear, anxiety, disappointment, rage, anger? How did having this lens help you understand and make space for those emotions as part of the healing process?
Therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy. I have two therapists now, actually. I had to get into therapy too. I started that in 2021, been in it ever since. And so the combination of that, right? I don't know that I don't like anger. I still don't like anger, which is very typical of my type.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like anything that's not, love and light and happiness can feel challenging to me. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be angry. I want to live a life where I don't have to be those things. And therapy taught me that's just too fucking bad.
Yeah.
You have to be those things. Being so close. I feel like I collect type eights like Pokemon cards. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how it happened. I'm glad it did. But eights have really taught me the last several years that anger is where your truth lies.
Yeah.
My deepest truth is my anger. And makes me emotional. Um, and that's why I was ignoring it. I didn't want to look at the truth. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to look at the sadness that I was experiencing every day, feeling alone in a marriage that was misaligned for me. A great guy, a really good guy. We were just mismatched. Like I wish him nothing but joy and happiness. And it was hard to hold space, or I'm sorry, to make space for the fact that everything in my life was misaligned. Almost everything in my life was misaligned. But once I did allow the anger, which then turned to like rage, right? The 40 years of rage,
Yeah.
starting from, little Amy, who had always had rage. That wasn't allowed in my life. And I didn't allow the sadness. And so once I did, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was hard. And I'm so glad I did it because I would still be stuck if I hadn't allowed the full spectrum of humanity. I think each type can be avoidant towards very certain emotions, right? We know that ones are going to avoid the anger. We know that eights are not going to avoid the anger, right? But it's whatever we're avoiding is what's keeping us stuck. So I had to just make room for all the horrible shit I was avoiding. And I will always be so glad I did that.
Yeah.
There's no other way through it than through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot about, as you were talking, some of the ways that our community locally here found Enneagram work and started digging into it. And I'm an eight as well. And I was one of the first people that brought it to the people and said, hey, I need you guys to start considering this. Maybe because I wanted a cheat sheet to understand my friends, perhaps, but also I think where I realized, and this is after 2 years of mistyping as a three as well. So I started out taking I don't know if you know that. I took
I
some
didn't
of
know
the
that.
tests and I online tests for Enneagram work we know are very stereotypical and they can be easily manipulated. I've proven it to people by saying, tell me which type you want me to have a result for. And then I'll take the test. I'm like, there you go. There's
Yes.
your type 6. I told you, look, I'm a type 6. So I'm like, grain of salt with the online tests. But every time I took one authentically, I would get really high equal numbers on 3, 7, and 8.
I am so surprised.
I know, right?
Every aggressive
I
type.
would turn around and say, at least I am aggressive. So there's that. But what ended up happening was I was able to say, I have so many questions about this lens of personal development and understanding myself. And I don't know how to ask the questions myself because I'm too close to me. So, hey, friends, could you all come down this rabbit hole with me so we can ask these, I don't know what's going on. Now I feel untethered questions together.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot about too, you were saying how your anger and your avoidance of it was a safer place for you. I think that's so true in grief. I mean, I say it often that I love my anger because it helps me see the injustice. Where is it that needs more care in my life?
Mhm.
And I think a lot about that is a very big place of stuckness for most people, not necessarily because they're afraid of anger, or even culturally because we've been taught to suppress it. But I do think about the idea of if you're dealing with anger, I wouldn't necessarily say go run to the enneagram and start processing it, because it's going to make you angry when you read about your type or find the one that feels the most uncomfortable. That's probably where you land. But I do want to know how you, in your coaching practice, help, or in your work, help people understand, hey, avoidance isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a sign that you need a little more care. Are there ways that you have them start to approach Enneagram work? Because I know so many are like, just take a test and then start reading a book. And it's just such a, yeah, just do the work, do the work. Are you doing the work? What the hell is the work, Amy? And how do you help people approach it?
Yeah, I love that question. I do like to start with what are we avoiding? List it out as many as you can, and with a goal of at least maybe 3 to 5 big ones, but no limits. Like if you've got 50, however many there are, 67 of them,
Yeah,
list all of them out. And then we're going to prioritize which ones are impacting you in the biggest negative way in your life, or what is getting in your way.
yeah,
And we're going to start with one of those. And we are going to tiptoe very slowly our way through that. I mean, anything with work like this, it's not meant to be you just dive in head first. Like with boundaries, it's my therapist taught me this and I push it into my coaching practice. Like with boundaries, start very small. Start telling people, no, I don't want pizza, or even if you do, or hey,
yeah,
can we do Mexican food tonight? I don't know why I'm just using food, but low risk. Whatever you can go into it with the lowest of risk. Because we don't want to send our nervous system into complete shock here.
yeah,
And certain types, right? Like I would never tell a 6, oh my God, just leap and we'll see how it goes. Like then you're going to have a heart attack. Find very low risk ways to start doing this work. No matter how low the risk is, the discomfort is huge,
yeah.
especially in the beginning. But I love that for me, discomfort is the compass.
Mm-hmm.
If it's comfortable, we don't need to go there. There's no need for us to go there. We can celebrate that for sure, but that's not where the biggest work lies, right? So as an aide, I'm not going to coach you around getting in touch with your anger. We're going to coach around getting in touch with your heart and your softness and your tenderness. And we're going to start that in a very, very safe way that is uncomfortable, but that's not going to shell shock you to never want to do it again, or that's going to make your body say, this is not safe. We're not doing this moving forward, especially with an 8, right? Because once that happens, that's probably it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get another chance. So, tiptoeing your way into that, getting your toes wet in the water, I think is one of my favorite ways of doing it. And maybe this is true I wonder if it's true for all coaches. I love coaching twos more than anything, more than anything. I want all the twos, give them to me. And I don't know if that's just because I am a 2 and that's the one I know the absolute most about at a core soul level.
Yeah.
But there is something so beautiful seeing someone who has the same patterns that I've always lived with.
Mm.
I'm just extra excited for the 2s. When they do the hard things, when they lean into that 8 intentionally, they lean into 4. I'm just like, hell yes. I know how hard that is, and I couldn't be more proud. I'm just as proud of you as an 8 for doing it. I just don't have that shared experience, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of relatability within it, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
I think what
Yeah.
you're describing so beautifully is really where people misunderstand how Enneagram typing is different than Myers-Briggs typing, different than strengths testing, different than all these other labels that people have really either devoted themselves to or shied away from, because one, we don't necessarily need labels or like labels. They can feel really limiting, like unhelpful boundaries. But I also think people have a lot of skepticism around languages, frameworks that have their own language, frameworks that really do give you permission to expand and be expressive. I don't know a single other social 8-wing 7 that's like me. I don't. And when I meet people who are, and in fact, right, those subtypes, now that we can listen it out for a tiny bit, and people that are listening that don't understand, it's okay. Just take a deep breath while I say this. That subtype, the counter subtype, was exactly why I couldn't find myself in the 8 from the 3, because I had so much social energy and so much desire to gather the people and be collectively concerned, like on behalf of the group. Like, how can I support the group well? And everyone said, well, that means you look like a 3 because you're on stage and you're trying to lead and be in charge. And I'm like, I don't think that's true at all, because I don't resonate with any of the 3 things. Anyway, okay, everyone listening, you can clue back in. I'm going to stop nerding out about the minutia. But I do think that this is a really wonderful opportunity for someone who is in that transition space to write their big long list out, and then like admit with the loving hand of a coach or a therapist, someone who is not just a peer. And I feel very strongly about this. So I'm glad you brought up multiple therapists for a duration of time. Our friends love us so much, and they are often not equipped to sit with us in the mud as long as we need them to, right? That's something as grievers we see constantly. Our people can be with us for the first session of it, or maybe the second. They can sit with us for a while, but generally speaking, they don't have the language, they don't have the discomfort tolerance to be able to stay present. So as you are, out of curiosity, uplifting your whole life and moving to Colorado and deciding, I'm out, I'm going to pursue this whole new thing. And yes, I have a therapist, but that changes when you move, and all the different connecting pieces. How did you help the people in your life that you wanted to keep on board to come along with you with this entirely new lens and understanding of yourself, without them saying, like, could you stop talking about CrossFit? All you talk about now is CrossFit, right? You're a proselytizer for CrossFit. And oh, do you do CrossFit? I had no idea. That kind of a thing. Because I feel like as Enneagram people, we kind of do that too. And by kind of, I mean all the time.
I was in CrossFit for 10 years. So
yeah.
I get that. I get that. That resonated so deeply for me, to the point where people were like, stop. I don't care how much you deadlift. I don't give a shit how much you power clean. Shut up. Like, got it. I think I have just gotten, all of my friends are just as obsessed with it. Just as obsessed with it. And it's not a requirement in my life. As I've started to make new friends in Colorado, I don't shove it down anyone's throat. I put it out there. I'm like, hey, if this is something you're interested in, just know I'm your girl. But my friends are just as into it as I am. And I love that. It's not a requirement though. They don't have to be. Like my neighbor, we know she's a 4. She's not super into it though, but it does give me a unique lens to see her through without wanting to put her in any box. Right. And I have to check myself, because I want to make sure I'm not more interested in their Enneagram journey than they are.
Totally.
Because I can be, for sure. For sure. I have to check myself with that. And so I try and use the language if they're already using the language. Or if I have a good friend that, I know they're just as into it as me, it's no holds bar. We're just Enneagram all the time. But I always preach that it's an inner journey. It's not for anyone else but that person first and foremost. And if they want it to be about other people, wonderful, but that's their decision. And so as someone who can not just struggle to set boundaries, but I can also struggle to, more so in the past, respect other people's boundaries. I try and do that up front so they don't have to. I don't want them to have to set a boundary. I want to just respect wherever they're at, meet them where they're at is probably a good way of saying it. I want to just meet people where they're at Enneagram wise. And if that's 110% obsessed like me, then that's where we're going to be. If it's like 20% like my neighbor, then that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a beautiful approach to allowing people to be who they are and where they're at. And it also speaks to how, even when you were talking about in the past lacking boundary or being able to respect people's boundaries, and like that's also something that we all still struggle with today. These little things, it's such a flow back and forth. And that's one thing I do appreciate about Enneagram language is it allows us to be human. It allows us to remain in process as a lifelong experience. And that reframing of this idea of like healing with a period, or healed, really past tense, goes out the window immediately. It's why this is such a great tool for people who are grieving or trying to transition and shift their whole approach to life so that they can feel more embodied. This is a great lens for it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your course. Unfuck Your Type is about shadow work. What is shadow work for someone who has no clue?
I think I like to look at it. I mean, Carl Jung is the right, the king and the creator of shadow work. I look at it as the parts of ourselves we do not want to face, the parts of ourselves that we might incorrectly label as bad. And I'm a huge fan of IFS and Richard Schwartz, no bad parts. Huge. I talk about that throughout my course. There are no bad parts. There's not a part of you that's bad, that's not worthy. But if you think there are, those are the parts that literally need you to wrap your arms around them. And I think shadow work offers us a very challenging path to offer pieces of ourselves compassion that get nothing. They get, if anything, they're getting shamed, they're getting berated, we're being incredibly hard on ourselves. And it's like, hold on. If I am a deeply manipulative type two, that can come with a lot of shame. So let's look at that. Why am I being manipulative?
Right.
Let's go backwards. Let's understand why we're doing that. And even just the why can be very compassionate. Just the why, like, oh, this is my childhood wound. I've done this since I can think of little Amy at 5 years old, people pleasing. I'm like, okay, let's go back and look at her. Why is she being manipulative? Well, she didn't feel safe to ask for what she wanted. How do I do that now?
Yeah.
Again, hard to look back, even harder to do it now.
Yeah.
But we're all so much more capable of those hard things than I think we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And so I didn't start with a beginner course. I didn't start with anything. I was like, this is not for beginners, hardly even intermediate. Like there's an expectation, and I market it that way correctly. I want people to know exactly what they're getting so they know if it's for them and if it's not for them.
Yeah.
But people need to know their type, not just know their type, not, oh, I'm an eight. What does that mean to live as an eight?
Yeah.
As if I'm an eight, I know what my stress line is. I know what that means.
Mhm.
I know what my growth line is. And I know what that language means. If you don't know what those things mean, it's not for you quite yet. And I say that everywhere on the website. But I love shadow work because I think it offers this hug to parts of ourselves that we've been probably pretty hard on throughout our
Yeah.
lives or just completely rejected and denied.
Well, I think that's the crux of any type of self growth or self inner work is actually getting to the meat of where the neglect of our personhood has existed and whether it's at our own hands or the hands of someone else. And how do we begin to offer care and compassion in a way that honors how we got there with respect for who we were, right? 5-year-old Amy didn't understand that she was being manipulative. 5-year-old Amy recognized, well, I can't get my needs met the way everyone else is getting them met, but I think if I cry, they'll pay attention. And then if I clean this part and without being asked, then they're going to say, oh, now I'm good. And we have those binary thinking, good, bad, right, wrong, that sneak in when we're young because that's how the world makes sense. And so to have permission as an older person and even as young adults and even teenagers, if they're feeling really supported and embodied, can utilize this awareness of shadow work and permission to look at ourselves through a lens of humility and mercy instead of a lens of judgment and condemnation. There's so much opportunity to then experience what it means to truly flourish as a human being.
Yeah, I think it's so lame. The whole from surviving to thriving. It's
Yeah,
not that.
it's not.
It's more, it's more surviving. Yes, we were just like little Amy was just surviving. All of us as little people, we were just surviving. But we don't have to live in that way anymore. And I think that those patterns, we can get locked into them. It's like, hold on, let's live with more intentionality. Is this a pattern I want to be with? Maybe it is. Maybe it's something you feel serves you and you want to keep being indirect in how you approach people and that's what works for you. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
Go right ahead.
sure.
I doubt that's how someone is going to feel, but maybe it is. But for me, it's more let's go from surviving to living with intentionality, whatever that means for someone. I'm not here to tell someone, you as a one should show up in this way.
Right.
It's more so I want to help you shine a light on how you've been showing up so then you can choose how you want to show up differently, if at all.
Yeah.
And if you do, there's going to be some guidance around maybe some options of what that could look like, but leaving that work for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that leaving the work for them because it is a choice and there's so much autonomy that comes out of enneagram work. And that specifically calls back to like letting people decide if they want to learn more about it or not. It's for them, not for us to know how to help them or support them or be in their lives. But I do think that there's a beautiful possibility, like that opens up almost immediately when someone says, oh, this is the type I relate to the most, or this is I like your language I got from you years ago. This is the energy I lead with. I lead with type 8 energy, knowing full well that I have access to the numbers right next to me on the circle and numbers on different across from me, and that every person embodies parts of all the different types as well. We have all of that same intelligence, within us. It's not just that I'm a gut instinct person and that's all the wisdom I have. It's
Right.
that I have brain wisdom, mental capacity, heart wisdom, emotional wisdom, and I just don't have as much access to it sometimes. So I think all of those different um, pathways back toward ourselves are really the gift we offer to people around us. And I think that that's something that you've done. And I'd love to hear just a little bit about how life in Colorado has begun to settle for you, because it's been a bit now. And I think the person you were when you arrived and the person that you've become since you've been there are subtly pointing others toward embodiment and safety to do the same thing for themselves as well.
I hope so. Thank you for that. It's been definitely gonna cry. It has been one of the best things I've ever done and the hardest. Like, I am nursing a broken heart. I'm nursing a recent breakup that shattered me, that I wasn't prepared for. I don't know if I, so when I first got to Colorado, when I very first got here, I thought, oh, what if I hate it here? What if I can't survive here? What if I don't make enough money to support myself on my own for the first time ever? I made no room for how happy I could be here, to the point to where, and this has happened to me a couple times in life, but I was driving down the road across the front range of the Rocky Mountains, like a girl from Oklahoma. Oh my God, I cried for the first 6 months just looking at the mountains every
Yeah.
day. Like, they're just, oh. And I remember I was driving down the road, windows down, and I thought, what is this weird feeling? And it was happiness. It was happiness. It had been so long since I felt so happy. And I have done nothing but learn since being here. I've been, at one point in my life, it was, if someone had a pulse, I wanted them to like me. And they could be my friend or probably my best friend. And I would have, 20 people I would call my best friend years and years and years ago. And I think I've made two friends since being here, and they're good friends. They're the right people. I'm not looking to collect the masses. I even told myself when I moved here, I'm like, I'm not even looking for new people. That's not my goal. And so allowing them to come into my life in a way that's very organic and natural. I do have that sexual one-to-one instinct. So it can be very easy for me to just go in deep with someone
Yeah.
and get them to like me. And I do not do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I ask myself now, I didn't even used to ask myself, well, what do I think of them? It was just, how do I get them to like me?
Yeah.
And so since being here, I really zoom out and evaluate. I don't go in as intensely. I did do that in my relationship, which is another lesson to continue to learn, right? I'm like, okay, there it is again. There is that pattern again that I've got to work on. But being here has opened my eyes to the fact that people can just live differently,
Mm.
right? Politically, even, right? Oklahoma to Colorado, a massive political shift.
Hmm.
Being in a place that's more inclusive has made me feel so much safer as a human.
Mm.
I feel so welcomed here and so safe here. And I didn't ever feel that way in Oklahoma. I never felt that way. I never felt safe.
Mm.
And I don't know if I felt included or not, but I didn't feel safe. When my parents helped me move here, my mom said, do you remember in the eighth grade you told me you will not live here one day? Like, that Oklahoma was not for you. And I
Wow.
said, no, I believe it. I believe it. But being here has just shifted how I see everything, everything. And I couldn't have had that experience had I not just done something scared. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified. But I just did it anyway because I knew it would pay off eventually. And it has in all the ways, right? And the heartache or the lessons in life don't stop just because you make one big shift. I'm like, oh, here's another lesson. That's the only way I learn.
Yeah.
It's got to be the hardest of all the ways.
Some of us
But
like
here,
the hard way, Amy. It's okay. Just own it.
I hate the hard way. The hard way loves me, but I keep choosing the hard way. That's what I keep doing. So yeah, I think it's always, I like to look back and reflect. And I'm looking back at it, a relationship. I'm like, oh, okay, here's things I need to learn. And I'm working on in therapy. I'm like, okay, how do I not do this again?
Yeah.
And looking at that through the lens of a two, knowing that I'm trying to be loved and I want it very, very intensely with my sexual instinct. I'm like, but is that what I need? Probably not.
Yeah, I love that you're asking, this is what I want, but what do I need? Not because they're not necessarily very similar or the same thing, primarily because it helps you identify the motivation behind it, the intention, like what am I trying to resolve? What am I trying to heal? What broken part do I feel needs tending? And am I cognizant enough? Am I feeling cared for enough to be able to respond differently than that reactionary, like trained response that I can recall very easily? I was telling my soccer players the other day that as a younger person, it was so easy for me to get frustrated on the field and fight back retaliatorily, like because I had a sweet little player who was getting smacked when the ref wasn't looking, and she body checked this girl. And so she got the foul. And I was like, beloved, I don't, and she's just looking at me like, what are you going to say, coach? And I'm like, what I'm going to say is we play our game. It's very different than what you just did. I understand the instinct to give her a taste of her own medicine. And I understand the parents not helping me by cheering you on. But I also need you to understand that as we learn more about what we're capable of, you know darn well you can outplay that girl. Why do you keep letting her get so close to you? She's like, oh, that's a really good point. But it took someone else applying a lens to say, yeah, I used to do that too. And then I realized she can't smack me if I'm 2 feet away from her. And 2 feet away is actually a really good time for me to change the direction I'm going with this ball. I can avoid getting a yellow card and getting hit by being better than her at this game. That's great. But it's so funny, like such a simple anecdote is such a highlight on how, yeah, we just go with our base instincts to create what feels like safety. You're going to fight me. I can fight you back twice as hard. And they were so sweet to say, like, were you really that player? I was like, yes, there's a reason I have a lot of injuries. It took a while for me to catch on. And now I get to pass that along. That's that same just awareness, even of your mom saying, like, hey, when you were young, you knew you weren't going to stay here. There's such a cool thread that we have the opportunity to look back at and say, this is how I've responded in the past. Yes, I still have access to that. I could totally body check that player if I wanted to. Or I could smile while I dribble past her and then like lovingly say and genuinely mean, hey, good game at the end, no matter how pissed off she is. Like we have the opportunity to be autonomous and make choices later. And that um, appropriate response changes with who we are and how we see ourselves moving through the world. I think the way you've embodied Enneagram language and insight is such a wonderful example of how that appropriate response needs to show up at sometimes and how sometimes we actually do need to look back and say like, oh, that's exactly why I responded that way. Okay, I see it now. And that's okay. I can love myself still, even though I made a choice that I didn't want to make and just made it out of, base instinct.
And I think that's where it circles back to awareness. Like if I'm not willing to look
Yeah.
back, I'll never be aware. And if I'm not aware, I'm going to keep doing it
Yeah.
forever,
Yeah.
forever and ever. Like I'm 41 and I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm still looking back. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing. I call it, looking in the mirror. You've got to be willing to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I really, for victim mentality for me used to just be like a warm blanket. Oh, I was wronged. Everyone was bad. Even through my divorce, I was like, oh, F him and he did this. He's actually a really great guy. And it wasn't until I got to Colorado that my therapist, Jenna, I was like, okay, we've done a lot of work around him. Like we've had a lot of conversation about him for the last several years,
Mm.
which is what I needed to do in order to leave. Now I need to look at my role in this
Yeah.
because there were two people in this situation, in this relationship, and I need to know what role I played in it. And that was very hard. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, shit, I was an active person. You mean I played a role in my own suffering? Surely not. Surely not. but I did, and we all do. And I don't know that there's any way forward until we're willing to look at how we have participated in our own suffering. Not to, victim blame anyone for anything that's, extreme or abuse or anything like that. I'm very, very fortunate that that was not my experience here. But being willing to say, what is my role in this in my own life?
Mm.
And is that how I want to show up moving forward? For me, the answer was absolutely not.
Yeah.
I do not want to make those mistakes. So then I got into another relationship and I didn't make those mistakes. I made new mistakes. And
I
one
found
day
other
I
areas that still need some healing.
yeah.
It's cool.
And one day I will make other new mistakes. All we can do is keep looking back and learning. But if we're not willing to look back, we're going to be stuck. And I don't want to be, I was stuck for so long. I was stuck for so long. And the book Untamed really changed my life. If you're familiar with that, I have a massive cheetah tattoo on my thigh because of it. The whole feeling like you're in a box, right? Feeling like like you're in a cage. That's what I felt. Oklahoma was a cage for me. And Colorado is that freedom. And I think a lot of people are likely living in a cage that they might not even be aware of. And we've got to ask ourselves, what is the cage I want to get out of?
Yeah.
How can I live more freely? And what does that look like for me? And then how do I do it? All of which is very hard.
Yeah, very hard because the cage equals safety. There's a very long fantasy novel series about a cage, and look it up yourself. I wouldn't even say that I necessarily recommend it or don't, but it's such a great metaphor throughout the whole thing of her recognizing, I liked my cage. There was a lot of safety in my cage, and they expanded it and gave me new wings, and I got to go new places. Baby girl, you're still in a cage and you're choosing it. And that arc of awareness is such a long, 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 long journey, long viewpoint that we don't necessarily think is so involved. We think, oh, it's been 2 years. It's been 5 years. It's been 6 years. Why am I still on this arc of awareness? Because life can be long. And that is excellent.
If we're lucky, it'll be long. If we're lucky, it will be,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amy, tell the people where to find you and all of your wonderful insights. And if they feel good about their Enneagram understanding and self-awareness, how to get in touch with you for your course.
So as of right now, my course, you can find me on Instagram, all crammed into one word, AlignedSoulCo. There's a link right in my bio that takes you directly to my course. It's a very long hyperlink that I've got to get updated as I have a ton of new offers that I'm going to be building, that I've already built. I just have to work on getting them out there into the world. So I hope to get my alignmysoul.com website updated soon. But as of now, Instagram's probably where you can find me, and then go to the course. I am going to be launching a newbie course, a self-typing course, and then a ton of challenges that people can do. I have it all built. I really stink at selling things. The building, the creative, yes. The selling, no, that's not my strong suit. So working on more offers that come out, because I know that the shadow work isn't for everyone. But yeah, probably Instagram is the best place to find me for right now.
I love it. Well, I'll definitely have your link to your Instagram account in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to learn more about Amy and what she offers, please check it out and go follow her work, because it is always so aesthetically pleasing first and foremost. And then it actually has the content that you want to. And you're like, damn, she didn't just repurpose someone else's post. She actually knows what she's talking about. How refreshing.
And she will call out other people for repurposing.
And she will absolutely nail them to the compassionate wall of please learn and figure it out for yourself. So, Amy, thank you again for sharing and for being vulnerable and taking such a bold journey so that the rest of us could just sit in the wings and applaud you and cheer you on. It is such an honor to be your friend and see all of the beautiful progress you continue to make. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of that progress. Yeah. I appreciate you.
Oh. Thank you for listening to episode 209 of Restorative Grief. Amy's story is one of enthusiasm and adventure and a willingness to be wrong, which is something each of us who wants transformation needs to practice. By leaning toward her discomfort as the compass for her path, she found a new version of herself deep within, just waiting to be unleashed. Be sure to check out the show notes if you are interested in coaching with Amy or learning more about her Enneagram course for shadow work. I highly recommend following her on social media as well. As I said, it's extremely aesthetically pleasing, and she puts so much effort into the depth and insight she creates with her content. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you so much for being here. Please be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review so everyone else can find this wonderful podcast for their own grief journey. If you are interested in the workbook for this episode or on learning more about how to support the work of restorative grief, you can visit patreon.com/Mandy Capehart, or again, just check out the show notes. Thank you as always to our current patrons, because you are such a solid foundation for this work to continue, and I cannot thank you enough. Be extra gentle with yourself this week, everyone. And before we go, as always, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.